Hi, all you wonderful Authors Love Readers listeners. Before we get into this week's show, I wanted to talk a little bit about why I am asking for Patreon donations. Let me tell you, it's really hard for me to ask. As my friends would tell you, I'm not good at asking for help at all. The reason that I set up the Patreon for the Authors Love Readers podcast, it is not for me as an individual author. It's strictly for the podcast. I would love for the podcast to become self-supporting because I've been supporting it to this point. The expenses include having the podcasts edited, because you'll be surprised to know we talk longer than you actually listen. And I have a monthly fee for hosting the files because these are big files. And what I would love is to have people donate, a couple dollars a month would be terrific. $2 a month would be 50 cents an episode. It would be a sign of support and it would help defray some of these costs. So that would be the way I could keep the podcast going on. And I hope you'll consider that. Thank you. Hi. Welcome to this week's Authors Love Readers podcast, where we delve into the stories behind the stories. We're asking authors questions, some of them fun, some of them serious, and from their answers, you're going to learn things you never knew about the people who write the stories you love. My name is Patricia McLinn. I'm your host and designated question asker.
I'm Julianne MacLean, and I'm an author who loves readers.
Now, let's start the show. Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Authors Love Readers podcast. I am so happy today to have Julianne MacLean, one of my more recent buddies. I've been talking to some people, Julianne, who I have known for decades. And Julianne and I got to know each other more kind of at the beginning of indie world, about 2013, somewhere in there. So you are just a baby in the world of my knowing you as an author, and in other ways too, very young. And we did some projects together in those first really heady days of independent publishing. Wow, it's changed a lot fast, hasn't it?
It sure has.
Yes. So let's let the listeners, I always want to say readers, and presumably the listeners are readers, but let's let them get to know you a little bit, just for some short, quirky questions. And I want to know the answer to this one in particular. What are some surprising jobs you've held?
Being the introvert that I am, this would probably surprise you to know that I was a DJ in a dance club in my college days. It was great fun. It was one of the funnest jobs I ever had. Saturday nights and, filling the dance floor. It was great. It was awesome.
So, okay, let's ask you, what's your favorite taste?
I think popcorn. The flavor of popcorn, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
And do you have a favorite color?
Crimson, like blood red, dark red crimson. I know that sounds kind of creepy. I'm not a thriller writer. But you know what? I was thinking, why do I like that color? And I just like the depth and how deep it is. But it makes me think of like red velvet curtains in an old theater. And that is just, to me, beautiful.
Yeah, it's rich. It has a lot of layers. Has that long been your favorite color?
Probably. I think red's always been my favorite color. I've painted some rooms red in the past, and it's kind of electric in a house, with a red room. But yeah, I do like it. I like red.
You know what? I realized I didn't ask you to tell the readers a little bit about what you write. So in our usual super organized manner, I'm going to break in here now and ask you to tell them a little bit about what you write.
Sure. I started off writing historical romance back in the mid 1990s, only because it was my favorite thing to read at the time. So then I wrote, I think, 19 historical romances for Harlequin and Avon and St. Martin's Press. And then after 15 years of that, I just needed to write something different. So I started writing contemporary women's fiction. And that's what I did, that Color of Heaven series, which I indie published. And the reason I indie published that was the first book. I had tried to submit it to a publisher, but they just wanted historical romances from me, and I wanted to write the book, so I went ahead and did it anyway and self-published it, and that's what got me into self-publishing. So then I've been kind of a hybrid author ever since, of doing both self-publishing and traditional. So yeah, but now these days I'm doing contemporary women's fiction, and I'll probably continue to do that for a while until I get the bug to write something different, and then we'll see.
And some of your contemporary women's fiction, is that being traditionally published?
I did 13 books in the Color of Heaven series, and then my most recent one is a standalone book called A Curve in the Road, and that one is published. The editor actually came up with that title. I had a different title originally. It was called Fear of Falling, which I didn't think was appropriate, but I couldn't think of anything better. Anyway, that's published by Lake Union Publishing, which is an imprint owned by Amazon.
Do you have childhood books or authors that you can remember that really made you go, whoa, okay, this is what story is what I crave and what I want to do?
Yeah. Although at the time, the first novel that I read that sort of blew my socks off would have been, I was young, I was like 12 years old, was Judy Blume, and all of her books. I just blew through all of them. But once I started reading those, it was just, I think it's entering into adulthood and starting to see, books in a different way. But that's what started me loving novels. And then when I got to university and I decided to major in English only because it was my I didn't know what to do with my life, but I was at university and I knew I was doing an arts degree, and I majored in English just because it was my favorite subject. I enjoyed the class more than any other class. And I think the reason I enjoyed it so much was because the professor had such a passion for books. And when I read Jane Eyre, that was my first real, I guess, truly adult book that I read, because I would read YA through high school and young adult types of books. And I read the stuff we're supposed to read in high school, like To Kill a Mockingbird and those kinds of things. But when I read Jane Eyre, I remember where I was sitting in the library at the university and just being so engrossed in it. And really, it's a romance, right? So, and that was the moment that set me off of deciding to major in English. And then after I graduated, gravitating towards historical romance. So yeah, Jane Eyre, I guess, would probably be the first book that really kind of changed my world for the better.
She suffers so much in it. Do you tend to make your characters suffer as much as Jane Eyre?
Yeah, I think I do. And it's funny because like my even my Color of Heaven books and the contemporary ones, and even the historicals as well, but the characters usually go through a really rough time. Like I throw a lot of awful stuff at them, and I put them through, not just one bad thing happening, but I pile another thing on and another thing, and I pile a lot of bad things on, but it always ends well. And that's important to me too. Like I think I once heard the description of tragedy with a happy ending. And I think that's the kind of book I like to read. And those are the kind of books I read. It's very tragic all the way, but then it ends well. And I think the ending is more uplifting because of how low you've been and the awful things that are happening. So when it's uplifting at the end, it just feels so good after all the bad stuff.
How do you feel as you're making those characters suffer? Do you suffer with them, or are you like, ha ha ha?
Well, sometimes in a way I go, ha ha ha, in terms when I think this is really good, this is good stuff. Like in terms of it being dramatic and suspenseful, I feel good about that. But there's been many times that I'm sitting at my keyboard and tears coming down my face, and I'm feeling what the character is feeling, and that's not fun. But then I usually know that I must be doing something right. If I feel emotional about it, then I think the reader will probably feel emotional about it too, which is what you want. Like, I enjoy an emotional read more than anything else, and I think a lot of readers do. So, yeah.
Does that mood carry over to your real life, or can you leave it at the keyboard?
I can leave it at the keyboard, but like it won't bring me down. Like if characters are going through a rough time, it won't bring me down. But when when I go to bed at night, when I wake up, they're the first thing I think about in the morning about whatever happened to them the day before when I was writing, and I think about how would they really be thinking about that, and how would they feel about it today, and I they're on my mind, but it's the characters that are on my mind, and it's not. It doesn't. It doesn't make me unhappy in real life. I always feel good if I've accomplished something that day, writing wise, like whether it's, my page count, like if I wrote 7 or 8 pages, I always feel really good about that, even if the pages were tragic. And I come out of it feeling like I did a good job. I wrote some good stuff today, even though it wasn't necessarily happy stuff. I still feel really good. And I'm one of those writers who I feel having written is the best feeling in the world. Like just having filled those blank pages, and it's just I feel euphoric. Like at night if I close my laptop and I've done 10 pages, I'm just on top of the world. So that's great job satisfaction. That part of it is.
We're going to go off. And I'll come back to some other questions, but this leads right off of what you've been saying, because one of the readers who's asked questions has asked if you work in a particular place, if you have, like, do you have an inspiring view? Do you have a certain routine that you write to?
Well, yes. When I'm writing a first draft, I have a definite routine, and it's I wake up in the morning. I usually write in my pajamas until I don't get dressed, and I start editing what I did the day before in the morning. So usually write from 9 to 12 or 1. So I do 4 hours in the morning, and usually polishing up what I did the day before and then trying to continue to move forward. So I might get like maybe 2 or 3 pages, 2 pages usually in the mornings. And then I break for lunch. I take the afternoon off. I go get groceries. I get supper ready. I run errands. or I just putter around. And then I start up again at 4 p.m. and I write from 4 p.m. till usually 9 with a break for supper. So I do sort of 2 4 or 5 hour sprints at different times of the day. And I have found this to be true. If I try to write all day long, like 8 hours, I just can't. Like I run out of gas. And I heard somewhere that it was a statistic that you can only be creative for 4 hours at a time. Now I realize everybody's different, but I can usually get I usually aim to do 7 pages a day. That's a minimum. And then 10 pages is a really great day. So, and then throughout the week, I make sure I get at least 30 pages, and I try for 40. So some days are better than others. Like I may have days where I only do 5 pages just because the story wasn't flowing or I was tired or whatever. But then I might have a 10 or a 12 page day, and that'll make up the difference. And then if I need to take a day off, I don't always take Saturdays off or Sundays off. I take the day off when I need it. So my husband's very supportive, thank goodness, because when I'm writing a first draft, he knows it's just like we're kind of I go in the cave for weeks, and until the book is done, and I might take a week off in the middle and we can go on a vacation or something. But he knows that most evenings I'm probably not going to be going to movies every night and doing things every night. Although, if we get invited to a party or dinner party, I will take the night off and go do that. But it's generally like 7 days a week I make myself available to the muse, I guess, and at least try. But writing a first draft I find very intense. It's an intense period. And then when I'm done, I need to take a month off and just not look at it, not write, and binge read other authors and go to movies and do other things. But yeah, it's like I'm on lockdown when I'm doing that first draft, and it's pretty much 7 days a week.
Let's bring it back to the books. What do you read for fun, Julianne?
Well, I love to binge read whenever I finish reading or finish writing a book. I spend a month, I binge reading. I pile up a TBR list of books, and I like to read the big bestsellers to find out what all the fuss is about. So, like Girl on the Train and Gone Girl, I read those, and then, well, right now I'm actually reading Rosamund Pilcher's The Shell Seekers, which was a huge bestseller back in the 80s.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But I never read it back then, and I remember that it was this giant bestseller, and I never did read it. And it's one of those books that it's like, okay, I think I need to read that now. Like I feel like a disgrace as a women's fiction author having never read that book, and it's fantastic. It's really, really good, and I can see why it's sold 5 million copies or however many it's sold. It's wonderful.
This kind of connects to a question from a reader that I think is fascinating. If you could write a book with any other author, alive or dead, who would you want to work with and why?
Okay, this is an interesting question. And again, I feel like I'm going to disappoint everybody when I answer it because I don't think I would want to work with an author, especially one that I love, because I kind of feel like we all have our own process. And I know like lots of authors collaborate with other authors and will write books together, but I don't know that I could because I have sort of my creative process and what works for me. And I think it would be difficult to, especially somebody that's, if it's an author that I really admire, they probably have a really great process of their own, and I don't want to mess with that. So yeah, I don't think I would collaborate with another author. I don't know that I could.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to go back to one of our getting to know you questions because I don't want to let this one go without asking it. I have my bizarre little desert island, and you can bring 3 movies to it. So it's got some way to play movies, but you can only play 3, evermore. That's it.
Right.
Forever. Which 3 movies are you going to bring?
You know what? I wish I could come up with something really intelligent sounding, but I think I would bring Working Girl. Do you remember that movie from the 80s with Harrison Ford? But I loved those characters, and it was a movie that it kind of changed my life, that movie, and made me realize that, we can be so much more than what we are. We have great potential, and I love that movie. So I think as a sentimental favorite, I would take that one. And I'd want to have it mixed up. So for comedy, I'd take City Slickers. I know it's totally cheesy. And then I think this is the one you'll probably think is insane. I would take Titanic because it's long. It's got romance. It's got tragedy. It's got suspense. It's got, and I found that movie, I can watch it once a year and be completely entertained. I never seem to tire of it because it's got so many different parts to it. So I think I might take that one.
I thought you were going to say Titanic because it would make you feel good that you were on a desert island.
That I survived. I was probably on a sinking ship, right? That's how I got there. Who knows?
Well, let's see. I like to see connections among the movies. And I can really see Working Girl and City Slickers of people, both of them, people realizing they are more than they thought they were. And maybe in a way in Titanic, although that's not my favorite movie.
But in the very, very end, remember when my interpretation of the ending of that movie, when she's in her bed, the old lady is in her bed, and it's showing the photographs from her life, and it's showing her flying in airplanes and riding horses and doing all the things that Jack had wanted her to do, and she did make so much more of her life. That's how she dies, because when Jack says to her, someday you're going to die an old lady in your bed, not here on this night, and that is how she goes. And then the very last scene is her going onto the ship again, and everyone applauds for her when she's at the clock and she meets Jack on the stairs, and all the people from the ship that died, they all applaud, and I think they're applauding the amazing life that she lived. And that's the moment that I love that movie for that moment. That's what I love about that movie so much, I think.
Well, I think those are very interesting selections. You said something earlier that made me think of another question that a reader asks. I know what it was. You talked about that you wake up in the morning and you're thinking about the characters and what happened to them the day before. And I think it's so interesting. And you said what happened to them. as opposed to what you did to them. I think that all of us tend to do that, to take a step away from what happened to the characters because it was the requirements of the story or their own personalities rather than us doing it to them. But this reader also asks if when we finished a book, do we think about the characters and do we miss them? And I love the question because I think clearly the reader does miss them.
Yes. I love this question too. And I think it's a great question. But when I answer it, I feel like I'm going to disappoint everybody because like my first thought is, oh, the politically correct answer is yes, I think about my characters and I miss them. But to be honest, once I finish a book, I'm starting another book. And it's always those characters who are at the top of my mind. And those are the characters I'm thinking about when I go to bed at night and when I wake up in the morning. So the ones that I've written before, it's kind of like I've given them their story and I'm all done with them and I can and set them on their way and off they go and I don't really think about them. I will think about my books and I will think about my characters fondly, but I don't miss them. I don't want to go back and be back there writing about them again. Especially once I feel like I've given them their happy ending and I've told their story, I don't feel like I need to tell more of their story. I don't necessarily want to go back there. Oftentimes I'll end up writing a book about a secondary character because that character never had their story told in that book. And I want to tell that person's story. So, and in that sense, the story continues through another set of characters. But generally, the answer would have to be no, I don't. I put them to bed and I send them on their way. And then I'm always thinking about the characters in whatever story I'm working on. Those are the ones I'm thinking about.
When you do those secondary characters, then the characters from previous books, you'll revisit them a little bit?
Yes. Yeah. They'll come back in and play a part in the next story for the sake of the new character. So I guess I do get to, still spend time with them, I suppose. But they don't have any more growth in that story. Like their growth happens in their own book.
Mm-hmm.
There's not usually, well, I shouldn't say that. I have had a few times where I've had characters go through some new growth in the next book because of a different character that they're, sort of interacting with.
Okay. If somebody has not read any of your books, what is a good entry point? What's a good book for them to get a sense? I'll give you a couple because you do have the historical and the contemporary.
Right. Yeah, I guess my first question would be, do you like historical romance or do you like contemporary? So if they like historicals, I would say start with book 1 of any of my series books. So then the Highlanders, I think my Highlanders are the ones I'm most proud of probably from my historicals. I've got a Highlander series. So Captured by the Highlanders, book 1, I would start there and go through the Highlanders. And I say that only, I don't know why I'm most proud of it. Maybe, I don't know. I think I did a lot of research for those books and I just enjoyed reading them. Anyway, writing them. But then, so for contemporary stuff, I would either start with A Curve in the Road, which is a standalone book. So you could read that and just figure out if you like my kind of writing. And then I would say go back and read Color of Heaven. And that's a 13-book series, the Color of Heaven series. So if you like that, then you've got lots to go. But I would start with A Curve in the Road because it's a standalone book.
So we talked about good books for people who are new to you to start with. Let's also, do you have any books that even your loyal readers maybe haven't paid as much attention to, aren't as familiar with as you would like? I think of them for myself as my orphan books.
It's funny. I think one of my favorite Color of Heaven books was The Color of Love, which was number 6, and it's the one with the purple cover. And that one probably sold the slowest of all the other books. And I don't know why. I don't know if it was the purple. I don't know, or if it was the amount of promotion I did. I don't know. But it remains one of my favorites. And I'm all, now it's sort of leveled out, but yeah, I think when people ask me which book should I read, I like to say that one because it's different from the rest and it's kind of unique and It's one of my favorites. Yeah.
Okay, we are coming to my very favorite part. These are rapid fire, either or, and I'll just start.
Okay.
Binge watch or make the watching last as long as possible.
Totally binge watch.
Opera or show tunes.
Show tunes.
Day or night.
Ooh, night.
Paper plates or best china.
Best china.
House decorating or gardening.
Oh God, house decorating.
Paint or wallpaper.
Paint.
Pickup or sports car.
Sports car.
Hiking boots or cowboy boots.
Hiking boots.
Heels or slippers.
Slippers.
Appetizer or dessert.
Dessert.
Ice cream or cake.
Oh, cake.
Daisies or roses.
Roses.
Hot air balloon or train trip.
Train.
Mustard or ketchup.
Ketchup.
Cat or dog.
Dog.
Coffee or tea.
Ooh, I love both, but I think coffee's more decadent to me. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Winter Olympics or Summer Olympics?
Summer.
Sailboat or motorboat?
Sailboat.
Leggings or sweats?
Leggings.
Spring or fall?
Fall.
And this is the last one. Grab the best first or save the best for last?
That's tough. I'm going to say save the best for last. Yeah.
Okay, you did incredibly well. I got to tell you, a lot of the authors are negotiating and weaseling.
Yeah, I went. It was like what is the Horseshack test? It's like quick, first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah.
And then sometimes later you might look back and go, well, I should have said this, but no, I think I said all the right ones. There was only one that I was a bit unsure about, and I can't remember what it was now. So remember I said I have a terrible short-term memory? Don't remember.
Well, you did terrific. Coffee or tea was the one.
Yeah, that was stumped me because
you wanted both.
Yeah, I do love both at different times of the day. But to me, like, coffee is the thing that I find I have to limit myself on because I could drink a lot more than I should. But tea, I never have any desire to drink more than one cup. But coffee is like, I want more, but I have to stop myself because I'll be bouncing off the walls.
Well, this has been a lot of fun, Julianne. We haven't had a chance to talk in a while, and I really enjoyed spending some time with you. And looking forward to having you back on this continent and to hear your stories about being in England and having a chance to see you more.
Yeah, this was great fun. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, delighted. And thank you to the listeners. Hope you'll come back next week to hear another author and the stories behind their stories. And in the meantime, have a great week of happy reading. That's the show for this week. Hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for joining Authors Love Readers podcast. Remember, you can always find out more about our guest authors in the show notes, and you can find out more about me at www.patriciamclinn.com. You can also send in questions to be asked of future authors at podcast@authorslovereaders.com. Until next week, wishing you lots of happy reading. Bye.